Alright, I know what you all want. I haven't even recorded part 1 yet, and I can already envision the comments. You want to know how you can become Batman at home. And while I can certainly sympathize, and it is my fullest intention now to oblige, if I'm being completely honest, the reasons I didn't include this in the original video are threefold. There's the reason I laid out last time, that I didn't want to risk getting the YouTube backhand over inciting dangerous activity or some shit. Number 2 is that, to be entirely frank, I just didn't feel like doing all the extra research for a single video. And number 3 is that I actually wanted to do this thing justice. And so I decided to give it its own separate moment to shine, rather than smush it in at the end of another video script. However, having said all that, I'm still going to put in here a quick legal disclaimer. Nothing I'm about to describe should in any way be taken as encouragement for vigilantism or illegal mischief. This is all just a good spot of spontaneous, childhood-friendly fantasy exploration, nothing more. Now, with that out of the way, for those who are disappointed in me for not mentioning Batman in my first ninja-related video, please accept this as a consolation prize. Let's see how we can transform the average, spindly, noodle-armed mall ninja into a fearsome, nigh preternatural super agent of the night. First of all, as I said at the very end of part 1, a ninja's first and most potent set of tools are his very own body, mind, and imagination. In truth, a master shinobi needs only 5 things to survive anywhere and accomplish anything his clan asks of him. And those 5 things are, in no special order, a flat cloth for wrapping, a long rope or cord for binding, a spike or stake for penetrating, ideally one ferruled with a ringlet or hook, a blade for cutting, and a cup or a flask for retaining what his hands cannot. And since I already bothered to write out this whole spiel that apparently only around a dozen people on X could be bothered to read, I'm going to just plaster it up on screen for you to peruse should you fancy. I've also made a previous video discussing a budget EDC car kit and bug-out bag for those who are interested, which I'd meant to, but forgot to link down in the description back in part 1. But getting along now to the more exciting things, the parts which you no doubt saw in the thumbnail and which enticed you to click on this video in the first place. While it would be simple for me to just prattle off a list of quasi-Batman-like gadgets you can go out and buy online, nobody comes to YouTube wanting to listen to an anthro-robotic wolfman read off his Amazon wishlist. So instead, I'm going to go for a full-on historical remaster of the Caped Crusader. If we wanted to emulate the Dark Knight's nocturnal modus operandi under real-world conditions, i.e. without an infinite budget and copious amounts of comic book magitech and plot armor to blow our sails, how would we need to compose ourselves? Well, to start off with, a weapon's only as good as the arm that wields it. So before we can go grab our backscabbards, our caltrops, or our smoke grenades, and don't worry, we'll get to all of these in due course, we have to observe the first of Musashi's 9 maxims of the warrior. The way is in training. To become a true ninja, a true warrior of the shadows, we must hone the body, the mind, and the spirit to be as hard and keen as any sword blade and as swift as any arrow or crossbow bolt. To that end, for the first of our 3 vital assets, I can personally vouch for the daily regimen of Saitama, aka One Punch Man. However, don't get your fitness advice from me. Go talk to someone who actually gets paid to advise on that sort of thing. At the end of the day, my real point for this bit is that however you choose to go about it, you want to get yourself to a point of fitness where you can comfortably lift your own body weight. Not only will this make the athletic and combative aspects of ninjutsu much more effective, as all the academic skill and form in the world won't amount to much if you lack the actual muscle power to produce pain with your punching form. It will also give you a substantial boost to your intimidation and charisma stats, which is useful not only for when you spy a pretty face you'd like to wake up to in the morning, but also for those occasions when you'd rather not go through all the legal hassle of plugging some irritating little insect's face into the nearest plane of masonry. Next up, since the way of the shinobi is as a gatherer of information, not a wanton berserker, it is incumbent upon you to return to your clan in one piece with whatever intel you've gathered. And as such, your primary arsenal should include a healthy variety of tricks, both mental and material, to avoid and circumnavigate any unnecessary risks. You're no good to your clan as a corpse, or even worse, as a hostage. As I've said innumerable times elsewhere when discussing mechs, power armor, and super soldiers, the best form of defense is, always has been, and always will be avoidance. I.e., don't let the other guy hit you or even see you in the first place. However, Since the ideal form rarely translates well into practical reality, the best option is to place something stronger, and preferably a bit less crucial to your continued health, in between yourself and the thing trying to trespass on your vital innards. But just like on the Jedi path, and as within all other aspects of ninjutsu, the actual needs of the moment must guide all thought and behavior, not some antiquated or cookie-cutter dogma. Which is a fancy way to say that you should wear whatever form of protection best suits against the sorts of threats you believe you're likely to encounter, and which also does not needlessly impede your ability to progress and accomplish your mission. For example, while chainmail is better for defeating knife attacks than Kevlar, it's also going to make more noise, and so is the much less optimal option for stealth. Just so, a full range of forest camo and a ghillie suit might come in handy while tromping through the Appalachian wilderness, but trying to sneak around in a concrete bunker or a Target's luxury penthouse dressed up like Bigfoot's introverted roommate would go about as well as trying to teach a bear to dance the Macarena, i.e., it's unlikely to succeed and you're likely to come away a few pieces short of when you entered. That being said, when sneaking around an enemy's base, the whole best practice is avoidance thing should really be top of mind. And to that end, the best way would be to practice the art of yo-nin, hiding in plain sight rather than in-nin, lurking in the shadows. Like I said last time, there's just as much power in mundanity as there is in a lordly status if you know how to use it. Nobody of rank is ever going to think highly enough of the janitor, the intern, the receptionist, the stock clerk, or the secretary to truly regard them as a legitimate threat. Which is also why, if it's at all possible for you to pass yourself off as a woman, you should do so, as it's a peculiar oversight on the part of men's evolved psychology that seems to utterly preclude them from even suspecting the fairer sex of any sort of dubious or malefic intentions or behaviors. Almost like they can't, on some foundational biological level, discriminate between a fully grown human female and a literal child, and so end up unconsciously treating the latter as the former. Or perhaps I'm just thinking too much for my own good again. Moving on. Of course, having said all of that, just like his feudal Japanese counterpart, the prudent modern ninja will also know and be well keen to take fullest advantage of the fact that he's not living in the 14th century anymore. We have technologies now like drones, goggles that can let you see in near absolute darkness, cameras that can see your body heat, and listening devices that can hear through walls using laser pulses that the antique shinobi would have considered near unto mythical, and indeed very well might have actually made them into the demigod-like super predators their posthumous legends make them out to be if they'd had access to them back in their time. At least some version of all of which can be readily sourced online, though granted, some may leave your bank account feeling a bit sorer than others. And while again I must stress that I neither condone nor endorse any sort of illicit activity, it wouldn't take but a mild dash of commitment to research the various methods by which these things may be tailored and employed to whatever ends you might dream up. And speaking of unforeseen events, should the worst thing come to be, that your disguise is somehow unveiled for what it is and your true nature revealed to those whom it should not be revealed to, remember your first priority is to flee. But do not, under any circumstances, lead the enemy back to your own base, or do anything whatsoever to reveal to them the location, numbers, or even the mere existence of the rest of your clan. As we laid out in both Part 1 and in the inaugural ninja video before that, being a ninja is not just a job, it's a lifestyle. Your clan is not just a band of your mutual acquaintances and nocturnal accomplices. In short, they are your family. And this is one of the few traditions that endures, regardless of time, place, culture, or ideals. There exists a special reserved seat in whatever sort of ultimate damnation you believe in for betrayers, mutineers, cowards, and turncoats. A ninja who betrays his clan is like a knight who breaks his oaths, a soldier who turns on his battle brothers, or the doctor who turns his expertise in the healing arts to the practices of torture. Therefore, in the name of keeping your clan's secrets deep within the crepuscular mists where they belong, we must now turn our attention to the arts of misdirection, of escape, of diversion, of evasion, and for only when absolutely necessary, of combat. Now, if you've made an academic study of the combative arts at all, you'll know that they have approximately 124 first rules apiece. However, the three most quintessential factors in achieving victory under most any circumstances are establishing and maintaining control of the distance, the timing, and the pace of the engagement. In short, you want to always be the one setting the stage, the tone, and the rhythm. Always make your opponent react to your moves, never play according to their rules. On the grand strategic level, you always want to be the composer, not the conductor. On the strategic level, you always want to be the conductor rather than the musician. And on the tactical level, you always want to be the player and never the instrument. To borrow a spot of Sith wisdom from Count Dooku, remembering the Jedi are samurai warrior monks in space. If you are to succeed in combat against the best of the Jedi, you must have fear, surprise, and intimidation on your side. And if any one element is lacking, it would be best for you to retreat. You must break them before you engage them. Only then will you ensure victory and have your trophy. Remember, it is humanly impossible to hold any ground or position when that ground or position is covered in spikes or is on fire. The historical ninja understood this, to the point that over 100 of the 600 pages of the Bansen Shukai are dedicated to various methods of starting, maintaining, and controlling fires for a variety of effective reasons under a variety of conditions and circumstances. And over 6 centuries worth of pyrotechnic advancements have naturally brought us innumerable gifts that feudal shinobi would have given their sword arms for, from thermite to C4, from tannerite to tear gas, all but one of which you can freely purchase either online or anywhere that sells sporting goods. You have any number of options to ruin your enemy's day and/or their property. Again, for legal reasons, I need to stress, do not go out and throw fire or red barrels at people or their castles. And as far as throwing weapons are concerned, literally anything you can pick up and throw with one hand is more or less equally viable. Although it would obviously help if it was sharp, at the end of the day, the point is not to slay the enemy with a pencil, but to get him to think of it as a tomahawk missile for just long enough for you to get in close enough to offer him a free death stick. And while, of course, you can simply go out and buy the entire classical assortment of pointy metal objects to throw at people in Minecraft, if you're absolutely determined to tread the ancient path and you're not yet ready to become a ringling circus act, then I'd strongly recommend going with these tri-pointed throwing axes. They're a bit harder to source on account of apparently being illegal in many countries, but they're multi-purpose unlike shuriken, and they're easier to throw and have more mass behind them than regular throwing knives or spikes. And this at last brings me to the singular core point I need to hammer home for this video. Momentum momento. Remember the moment. There is no such thing as an omni-tool. That is, there is no such thing as a singular tool or tactic that will achieve optimal results across all situations under all circumstances. Sooner or later, you're going to have to adapt to the unforeseen. And this is why the single greatest asset for the ninja to cultivate is their imagination and cunning. The key example of which being in the trade-off between the in-nin and yo-nin operations. Even in some parts of the US, if anyone but an on-duty locksmith is caught wandering around with a set of lockpicks, even if there's no other evidence of any wrongdoing, it will just be assumed that you were up to no good and you could be detained or arrested on the suspicion alone. Now imagine what'll happen if a security guard or a cop makes you turn out your pockets and a bag of caltrops and smoke bombs falls out. But at the same time, between GPS tracking and facial recognition software, the odds of you actually getting away if someone important is actively looking for you are pretty much zero, which is why it is and has always been best to avoid even being suspected by adopting the age-old method of the SCP or somebody else's problem. But the more I think on it, the more I'm starting to feel that I'll need to make a part 3 for this little side project. So if that's something you'd like to see, be sure to make that opinion known in the usual ways. And of course, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Pick up a book if you're feeling particularly supportive, and until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay sane, and always remember, the one true and correct way of doing anything is the way that works, and the best way of doing something is the way that works most reliably. Peace be upon you.